We update the top 25 rankings and talk team resumes, breaking down their full body of work thus far this season. We got a lot to get into on this week's episode of the pod, so subscribe on YouTube before we get started and let's talk some hockey. I've been updating the rankings every week. In fact, I think this will be the fifth rankings update of the season. And I've been pretty conservative with rankings movement. You know, a team loses a few games or struggles in a couple consecutive outings, I dropped them down a few spots. And, teams were progressively working their way up or down the rankings from where we started in the preseason. But we're to a point in the season now where I felt more drastic, sweeping changes were necessary. So you'll see some pretty volatile movements last week to this week if you've been following along on pdspicks.com. And like I said, I think we're just now starting to see more games in the bag, a fuller body of work to try and base some of these rankings off of. I like this list. I like where we're at currently. Can also highlight where these teams sit as it relates to other rankings outlets like My Hockey Rankings, State Champs, and yes, unfortunately, NPR as well. Far and away my least favorite rankings of the bunch. I've shared my thoughts and opinions on NPR on previous podcasts. I won't hash out or get into too much of that right now. But okay, let me see if I can do this. Okay, good there. I'll pull up the top 20, an empty top 25 for you. We'll begin to fill these in one by one. Number 25 here, if this is going to cooperate. There we go. Caledonia at 25. And let me look real quick at my previous rankings. I had them at 22 2 weeks ago, and then unranked 3 weeks ago. So falling down the rankings slightly, and we'll get into their resume here. Big as far as each one of these teams, I'm going to give you their big wins thus far, bad losses thus far, key players, and what the road ahead looks like as well. Caledonia, no wins over a ranked opponent yet. They have a 5-2 win over a really good Marysville team that's popped up on a couple teams in the top 25 on their radar. That's a good quality win. Marysville, I'd probably have on the bubble, on the fringe of a top 25, looking to get a number next to their names. 6-1 win over Salem's pretty decisive. I know Salem's a little bit down this year. That's still a good KLAA program. They also have a 5-0 win over Forest Hill Central. FHC is a team that's been on the cusp of a top 25 ranking as well. So while they don't have any wins over a top 25 team currently, they got a lot of wins over teams that are kind of on that bubble, on the fringe, and that's why Caledonia kind of gets the nod here with a number next to their name. As far as bad losses, they did drop one 4-1 to Chip Valley. On paper, I'd like to think Caledonia would be a pretty heavy favorite in that matchup. So to lose in that fashion is a bit of an unfortunate loss there for the Scots. A couple key players I'd like to point out here. Ethan Sova leads the team with 15 points, and there's a bit of a three-headed attack with him, my guy Harmon Esch, Ty Lewandowski up front, Gabe Supik on the back end as well. All four averaging a point per game through 10 games this season for Caledonia. The road ahead could be a little bit rough. We're going to find out if the Scots are going to sink or swim. They take on number 20 Brighton this Saturday. I believe that's at Munn Ice Arena there in East Lansing. Also got two OKC matchups, back-to-back games in January with number 16 East Grand Rapids and then number 22 Byron Center. So all winnable games from here on out, but those are some tough matchups there, particularly that I got circled on the Caledonia calendar. Let's see here. We'll move ahead to number 24, Matawan. I believe might be the only undefeated team left in the state right now at 13-0. A big win, 4-2 over previously mentioned Caledonia as their one big win, and then obviously there's no bad losses on the resume as they've yet to taste defeat. A couple key players I wanted to call out. Ben Eddington, he's a guy I've keyed in on a couple times this season and preseason. Defenseman leads the team with 13 goals. Pretty impressive there from the back end. And then forward, Griffin Davis leads the way with 28 points. 7 of those coming on the power play too, by the way. As far as the road ahead, next 4 games I think will really tell us everything we need to know about Matawan. I got Cap City coming up. That's another bubble team in that 25 to 35 range. A couple big games out of them, and they could earn a number next to their name. So Matawan's also got number 7 Livonia Stevenson coming up on the calendar. 12th ranked Granville and number 22 Byron Center. And I know I'm kind of maybe giving some spoiler alerts here with these games and previews ahead and mentioning, who the number 7 team is, who the number 12 team is. I'm not too worried about revealing these teams in order. We'll just talk about things as we go here and let the chips fall where they may. So moving up to, lost Matawan. All right. Clarkston at 4-5-0. Now, these guys took a bit of a hit week over week, and this is one, maybe out of the gate, maybe I started them out just a little too high in my preseason rankings. They opened up at number 7 overall, and that's what I mean. The season has started to wear on here in the early going. I bumped them down. And now as we look at their body of work in totality, maybe time to make some more sweeping changes there. Big wins for the Wolves. They obviously beat number 10 Marquette 4-1 right out of the gate to start the season. Also a 3-1 win over Brighton. A couple, we'll call them bad losses. I don't know how bad they are necessarily, but lost 4 of their last 5 games. Including a 5-1 loss to Forest Hill Central, one of those bubble teams that I just mentioned a minute ago. Key players, leading scorer Gavin Anderson has just 9 points in 9 games, which is not a bad stat line by any means. But he's their go-to guy, right? And they need big performances out of a guy like him. Just 1 point so far in the month of December, too. So if he can get that turned around, I believe it'll help turn the whole program around this season as well. The road ahead, tons of opportunity here. Heartland, Brighton, CC, Northville, Howell, all on the horizon in the month of January. You win just a couple of those games, be competitive in the majority, and could really shift momentum, I think, as they wrap up OAA action later in the season as well. Okay, we'll keep climbing up the list here. Number 22, I got Byron Center, also 4-5-0 on the season. Did I lose my spot here? No, I didn't. It's just it's duplicate. It just threw me off because Clarkston beat Marquette 4-1, and then Byron Center also beat Marquette 4-1. So I thought I was reading the same thing twice there, but. Byron Center also just beat Clarkston 3-0 over this past weekend. So there's 2 feathers in the cap there for Byron Center. Bad losses, again, bad losses is probably not the best term to use here, but 5-3 at the hands of Rockford is a bit of a surprising one to me, I think. That's a Rockford team that turned around and lost to CC's B team just a few days later. So kind of a tough one there to stomach there, I think, for BC. Key players, Luke Goheen has a point in every game so far this season. A 9-game point streak, including a double hat trick in a 9-1 win over Grand Rapids Christian. And BC is getting better playing in front of Quinn Saul as well. Was giving up 33-plus shots on goal per game in his first 4 starts. Allowed a total of just 33 shots combined in his previous 2 starts. That includes just 16 shots against to number 23 Clarkston there. So I think they're starting to tighten things up a little bit defensively and just having a better showing overall. The road ahead should be the favorite in a lot of games down the stretch here. Tough ones against CC and Granville. Obviously, depending on the matchups at the North-South Showcase and the MIHL Showcase, you'll hear me say that about a couple teams here. BC could be seen as the favorite in a lot of their remaining games here down the stretch. I lost Byron Center. I keep clicking on this side of the window here, and it's making teams disappear. Come on, PD, be better. Number 21, Northville, 5-3-0 so far this season. Big win for them, 3-1 over East Grand Rapids. Was that at East Grand Rapids too? I think that was on the west side, but bad losses. This is their only loss, I believe, to an in-state opponent. I might be missing one if they played last night. I hadn't gotten fully caught up, but did just drop one 4-3 to De La Salle. That was by way of a shootout, though, so you're essentially losing a coin flip in what was otherwise a tie game. So hardly a bad loss, in my opinion. A couple key players I wanted to call out here. Tommy Marinoff has a point in all but one game so far for the Mustangs. That game was obviously the 1-0 shutout at the hands of Brighton, who we'll get to here in a minute as well. Just eclipsed the 100-point mark in his 4-year career. 103 now through 81 career games with Northville. 15 points this season. Ethan Egglesky also has 14. That's a pretty good 1-2 combo there for Northville. The road ahead, some tough KLAA matchups coming up. But don't be surprised if the Mustangs get to the 15-win mark before we get to playoffs there. Excuse me. All right. Number 20. There we go. Brighton, 5-4-0. It seems to a lot of these teams here, right within a game of 500 as we're sitting here in the 20 through 25 range of the rankings. Big win, I just mentioned it, the 1-0 win over Northville. Those games, there's a couple results on Brighton and Northville's schedules, respectively. That's going to kind of handcuff these two together in the rankings, I feel like. If one goes up, the other's got to go up. If one goes down, the other's got to go down with them. I think these two are kind of attached at the hip from a rankings perspective. Bad losses. So far, all of their losses are to ranked opponents. Now, a decisive 5-0 loss at the hands of CC last weekend, 8-3 to Orchard Lake. Both of those really suggest they're still a ways away from that top tier of teams, especially when you're looking at CC being in Division I as well. Some ground to make up there in terms of playoffs and when we start looking at the postseason. Key players for Brighton. Reese Hutchison made 35 saves in that shutout win over the Mustangs. That was his second of back-to-back shutouts this season. Hutchison's got a 91.3 save percentage. Defenseman Vince Walkup leading the team in every major category. Goals, he's got 6. Assists, he's got 7. And then obviously, if you lead the team in both goals and assists, you're obviously going to lead them in points as well. He's got 13. Half of those points coming on the man advantage. And I wanted to point this out because a Bulldogs defenseman hasn't led the team in scoring in the Hub era, in the Hockey Hub era. And that goes all the way back to the 12-13 season. There's been some damn good defensemen in that span, right? You got guys like Tim Urkula, Sam Brennan that have all donned the Brighton hockey sweater. So if it holds true, obviously there's a lot of hockey left to be played. We're barely at the halfway point of the season, but yeah, that holds true. And Vince Walkup, a defenseman, leads the Bulldogs in scoring. That'd be a pretty impressive feat there. So the road ahead, they're in the midst of a 7-game stretch of ranked opponents. They're 1-1 plus whatever happened against Stevenson last night. I think Stevenson won that 4-3 if I'm not mistaken. So things might get a little bit worse before they get better for Brighton here, but I'm optimistic on how they'll fare down the stretch. Okay, number 19, Jeffers is 8-3-1. A couple big wins for them, 5-2 over Escanaba, 4-3 over Byron Center, who we just talked about a minute ago. Bad losses. Now this is a tough one. When you drop one, 8-0 to Calumet, that's a tough one. And then 4-3 to Divine Child as well. DC is a really young squad, up-and-coming squad for sure. And maybe that's a big feather in their cap as they kind of develop and grow and build that young core back up, that this is kind of a feather in their caps. But nonetheless, a game in particular that I would have expected an experienced, seasoned Jeffers program on the heels of a Final Four appearance to really handle their business against a younger team. So Kind of an unfortunate one there. The Calumet Mercy, that's a bit of a head scratcher there for me. Kind of an outlier. And there's been a couple of those this season, too. We'll talk about a couple more here as we climb up the rankings. A couple key players for the Jets. Leading scorer, Brogan Turner, obviously. He's on an 8-game point streak right now. A 5-point night and a 6-4 win over Hancock on Tuesday. Really willing his team to victory in some of these games. And I think I've said it before, but, Cam Anderson may be the key to the team's success in a weird way, right? They are 8-1-1 when he gets on the score sheet and 0-2 when he does not. So stop Cam, stop the Jets seems to kind of be the equation there when taking on Jeffers. The road ahead should be considered heavy favorites, I would think, in their next 4 games, and maybe 5 of the 11 listed on the hub. So I'll be curious to see how the Jets fare in a rematch with Calumet later in the season as well. I'd like to think that's a different story than what we saw in the first go-round. I get to the middle portion of the rankings here. Oh, wow, we jumped way ahead, but that's okay. Let me back up here. There we go. We're at 18. Sorry to get ahead of myself here. 18, we got Rochester United at 10-2-0. A couple big wins, really big wins for that program. Obviously, the 3-0 win over OAA rival and top dog in that conference for several years now for that rising program RU to pull off a victory in decisive fashion, no less, over Clarkston. That's a big feather in the cap. But then to follow it up with a 3-1 win over Brother Rice. Rice was a team I had in the rankings up until now, up until this update. But even an unranked Brother Rice team, it's still an MIHL team. It's still a highly regarded program by a very well-coached group. That's a big win for an RU team there, too. And then I have a 1-0 win over East Grand Rapids. Did they top EGR? That is, I guess I kind of spaced on that one. But nonetheless, some big wins there for RU. Bad losses, if you want to lump it into this. Did drop one 11-3 to Toledo St. Francis. I'm not going to pretend to know a lot about Toledo St. Francis here. Out-of-state school, obviously, from Ohio. How that loss really stacks up or shakes out, it is kind of tough to measure in the grand scheme of things, as it's not a team that we see on the regular. So key players, the top line's good, man. Nolan Heiser, I've talked about him a bunch. Wrote a little blog on pdspicks.com about this RU group because it just seems like a bit of a special bunch, especially on the heels of those 2 big wins I just mentioned before. Nolan Heiser, Zach Brennan, Connor Sichaki, 33 of the team's 54 goals this season. Maybe a top-heavy lineup, but a damn good top, right? Those are all juniors as well. You could get all those guys back on the team a year from now as well. The road ahead, they might not lose a game the rest of the regular season. Favorable schedule, and they're just that good too. MIHL matchups down the stretch in a rematch with what will be a very motivated Clarkston team looking to get revenge. All of those are winnable games, though. They've obviously proved they can beat Clarkston, but can they do it again? That'll be a challenge. And then obviously whoever you draw at the MIHL Showcase, probably their 3 toughest games left on the schedule. There we go. Maybe that's the approach I'll take. I'll just click right on the number and then it'll slide them across. That'll work. Number 17, I got Houghton here, 4-5-1 on the season. Couple big wins for them. Obviously, the 6-0 shutout over Marquette. That was the second night of back-to-back games in that season series. 4-1 win over Jeffers as well, and then they beat East Grand Rapids 2-1 on top of that. A couple bad losses. All 5 losses are to ranked opponents. I know Howell is good, ranked number 3, but a 6-0 loss on home ice was a bit of a shocker to me, especially in the early stages of the season where I would have expected Howell on the heels of a long road trip up there on one of the first weekends of the season to struggle maybe a little bit, and it was the opposite. It was Howell taking it there to the Gremlins. Have also lost 3 straight and 4 of their last 6, by the way. So I got to get back in the win column against some tough opponents. You got Connor Arco, you got Noah Millette. The only guys currently in double figures right now for Houghton need to get more out of guys like Brody Donnelly, Jack Sand. Those were major contributors a year ago. So kind of need them to take that next step in order to start climbing up the rankings here and getting back into a bit of a contender status. The road ahead, they got Heartland, they got Trenton, they got Stevenson, they got Brighton, they got Riverview, Gabriel Richard. That's all in the next month of hockey. Can you give me 3 wins out of that bunch? That'd be a pretty big accomplishment there for the Gremlins. I think if you can get 3 of the 5 there. Okay, number 16, we got East Grand Rapids. I've talked about them a couple times now in one way or another, whether it was a big win for previous teams or a bad loss for other teams as well that we've talked about so far. So EGR sits at 6-4-0. Big win for them, 5-1 over Trenton in that. I think it was like a bit of an East-West showcase, a West Michigan showcase there at Patterson. Bad losses. There isn't really a bad loss in the group there of the 4 games they've dropped. Maybe slightly surprised by the losses to Northville and to RU, but both are still solid opponents, right? It's not like they're losing to the bum of the month or anything. Key players for them, both Charlie Finch and Ryder Owen have been playing exceptional in net. A combined 1.60 goals against average against a strength of schedule that currently ranks 14th in the state. So other one here, Bryce Bjornson's been a factor as of late as well, riding a 7-game point streak for the Pioneers. Road ahead, they got a matchup with Powers this weekend, actually. And we'll certainly draw tough matchups, like I said, in the MIHL showcase. But that's TBD. More to come on that front. Okay. All right. Moving on, we get to number 15 here. Escanaba, 7-3-0. And they've been battling some injuries. There's been a lot of adversity there. In Escanaba through the early points of this season, and they're handling it well, right? 7-3-0, big wins over Houghton, 6-2, 6-1 win over Calumet. Calumet, who just mercied Jeffers. That's a big feather in the cap. Now the flip side of it, maybe bad losses. 7-0 to RGR. That's a bit of a tough one to stomach. There, you'd like to be a little more competitive in an outing like that. And then a very surprising loss, 2-0 to Traverse City West, which I believe was a home game too. I'm not positive on that. But TC West, good program, very well coached. That's no slight to them by any stretch of the imagination. And maybe even a team I'd have in that 25 to 40, 45-ish range that could potentially flirt with a number next to their name at some point this season. But just a bit of a surprising loss there, as I would have expected Escanaba to prevail. Key players, obviously, Graham Johnson. He's got 27 points in 10 games. He's got 6 multi-goal games this season, including 4 hat tricks. Someone other than Cully Hayes started a game for the Eskimos to hold the presses. What just happened? Sophomore Mason Couch earned a 12-save shutout over Nagani, which I think is the first Escanaba game played by a goalie not named Cully Hayes since at least March of 2022. Hayes has still very much been involved. He's had 9 starts of his own this season as well. Love that guy. Great story there, and obviously been the backbone of that program now for 4 years. But nice to see another guy get in the mix there in goal for the Eskimos. At home against Marquette, as we look towards the road ahead, on the road against Alpena. A couple of showcases coming up on the other side of the new year as well. So much more to come from Escanaba, and hopefully a little more healthy, right? It's the Escanaba ER up there, I think, is what the locker room looks like with some of the injuries I was hearing about. So hopefully the new year can get healthier, get right, get better, and continue to improve on what is already a strong resume so far. Okay, number 14, we stay in the UP for Calumet, 5-2-1 on the season. 4-2 win over Houghton. I mentioned the 8-0 Mercy win over Jeffers. Bad losses. Again, I don't know that it's a bad loss when you drop one to a good Escanaba team. It's just the way in which they lost 6-1. And then 4-0 to Howell. Again, Howell is one of, if not the best team in the state. So to drop one to the Highlanders is not a huge blemish on your resume there. Key players, the top line, man, Nate Londo, Ben Anderson, Eric Locus have been solid. But how about junior goalie Bo Jacurri for a minute? Much improved from a season ago. Played every game for the Copper Kings. He's got a 2.28 goals against and a 90.9 save percentage. Those are good numbers, not great. I get that. It's not elite. It's not, sub 1.5 goals against or anything absurd like that. But he's improving. He's developing. He's getting better year over year, and I love to see that. So I wanted to give a bit of a shout out there. The road ahead, their next 8 games are tough, man. But everyone comes to them in this stretch. So don't be surprised if this team is sitting at like 14 wins as we're heading into the MIHL showcase. That would be a pretty good statement there from the Copper Kings. Number 13 here, I got Utica Eisenhower. They debuted, let me see if I can pull up my rankings real quick. They debuted in, they were on my preseason rankings at number 20, climbed up to 18, got as high as 15 before peaking here at number 13. Couple big wins. It's not a robust resume, but still nonetheless, 4-2 win over Rochester United. I mentioned RU, spoke highly of them just a few minutes ago. If Ike is going to come in and top RU in the way they did, that's a big feather in the cap. 5-2 over Marysville as well. They beat De La Salle in the moment, felt like a big win. De La Salle has had really good moments and struggled in others, so I don't quite know what to make of that victory just yet. But outside of RU, Ike doesn't have a win over another ranked opponent and won't get another shot at another ranked opponent throughout the rest of the season too. So could be a bit of an interesting one. Bad losses. I know they're 3-5-0 on the season after the whole forfeit fiasco, but technically no bad losses on the resume. Key players for them, it's a laundry list right now. Joey Zelenek, Nate Schilke, Bodie Farr, Sawyer Hotchkiss, Connor Holmes in net. There's no shortage of playmakers on this team. You look at the road ahead, and I kind of teased it there for a second. They may not lose another game the rest of the regular season. The schedule is relatively soft, with the exception of maybe the North-South showcase and who they draw at that event. Realistically, this team may not lose a game until the state semifinals, when they inevitably run into a Brighton or a Heartland Howell CC, some combination of those teams. This is a team I worry you're going to wish was just a little more battle-tested come playoff time. Can you win a 2-1 game when the offense is hard to come by? Can you kill off crucial penalties when the game is on the line? I'm not sure anyone remaining on the schedule is going to be able to give you that look, that push, that challenge. So it's going to be tough to then try and flip a switch or turn it on when you got to step into the game's brightest lights on the game's biggest stage against some of the blue bloods in high school hockey that have been here time and time again. So, look, there's going to be a ton of wins between now and then. Enjoy the ride, and let's see where the chips fall when we get there, is kind of where I'm at with Ike. But they're peaking at 13 now and might not be done. The climb might not be over yet either as we get to the other side of the holiday break. Number 12 here, I got Granville, and I might be a little bit high on the Bulldogs. Let me see where some other outlets have them. Yeah, My Hockey Rankings has them 21. MPR has them lower at 31. Sean Belegian, state champs, they have Granville at number 8. I think that's more in line. I think some of these systems and automation just needs to see a little more data points from Granville. But I know what that team is, who those players are, and kind of what to expect from that group. So I think we're going to see more of that 6-1-1 record they have so far. Big wins, 4-3 over Houghton in that West Michigan showcase a couple weeks back. Bad losses. It's the only loss on their resume, and I'd hardly consider it a bad one. I did hype it up pretty big on pdspicks.com as a bit of a prove-it moment for Granville, and they dropped a 4-1 loss to Trenton. Key players, I had Landon Smith, Zach Stonehouse, Luke DeBoer, even defenseman Louis Gardine and Braden Vanderveen on my list of players to look out for with Granville. But it's Caleb Anderson leading the Bulldogs in scoring currently with 12 points in 8 games. That's no slight to him by any means. I don't rattle off all those players in spite of. I rattle it off to illustrate they've got all these playmakers, and additionally, here comes Caleb Anderson leading the way as well. I'm telling you, man, it's a diverse team. It's a deep team, and they've got goaltending on top of it all with Aiden Karras. They've got a lot of games left. They've only got 8 games in the bag right now. So you got 20-plus games to go. There's a lot left, but you got to feel real good about where this Granville team is at right now. Lost Granville. There they go. I lost them again. There we go. All right, we get closer and closer to the top 10 here. We get to Cranbrook at 8-3-0, and this is one of my kind of eye-openers, and I was like, all right, I really need to rethink the rankings here. Cranbrook is up. I keep losing my tab. Cranbrook is up 11 spots from last week, and that's what I mean. They were on a steady climb up the rankings, debuted in the preseason at 23, jumped up to 22, 21, and then it just felt like it's time to move them based on their body of work and what they've accomplished thus far. 3-2 over South Lyon. I put a question mark next to it as a big win. South Lyon is on the bubble, man. They're in that mix too, on the fringe, knocking on the door of the rankings. So that I think that 3-2 win is going to prove to be more impressive as the season unfolds too. And then they also drubbed Trenton, put up a touchdown on the Trojans in a 7-4 win in a tough MIHL matchup. So I knew the defense was going to be good. I knew the goaltending was going to be strong, and it was going to be a well-coached group that was going to limit opponents in the offense. But then when you put up a 7 spot on Trenton, really shows me you're maybe more capable of what I initially thought when, like I said, they debuted at 23. Bad losses, that's the other thing. 3 losses on the resume. Not a bad one in the bunch. 2 of the 3 losses are to out-of-state St. Francis, who we mentioned a few moments ago. They lost to St. Francis twice, 3-2 and 4-2. Neither one of those are a bad loss against a very talented team out of Ohio. A 3-2 loss to Alpena, and we'll get to them in a minute too. They're competitive in all 11 games thus far. That's a pretty big statement right there. From Cranbrook. Start looking at their key players too. Effios Turin leads the team in every major category. He's got a point in all but one game, 9 goals, 15 assists, 24 points. He's having a fantastic year. Reston Seco as well has 6 multi-point games on top of that. The road ahead, just after the new year, they take on Orchard Lake, they take on CC. Stevenson, they got a rematch with Trenton. How will that one unfold? This team might win 15-plus games in what was supposed to be a down year for the Cranes. I did not see this coming, and I don't know that people at Cranbrook saw this coming, to be honest with you. So pretty impressive start to the season. And so like I said, this was one of the teams that was a bit of an eye-opener for me. Like, okay, we need to rethink the rankings here a little bit. I can't just keep bumping teams up. I gotta overhaul the top 25. So that's where the Cranes sit here at number 11. We get to the top 10. We go back to the UP. Marquette, 7-3-2. This is a team that I think has pretty steadily been in my top 10 all season so far. 10, 11, 11, 10, and then they stay here at 10 in the most recent update. A couple big wins for them, or a big win for them, 5-3 over Houghton. The 3-3 tie with Calumet, I feel like is going to feel like a bit of a victory, especially as good as Calumet has proved to be in the early points of this season. Bad losses, again, I taper that bad losses. 6-0 to Houghton the following night, maybe a little tough. But if you're splitting goaltending duty, a short turnaround, a lot of factors that go into that in terms of the two different results. So try to look at it in totality and not necessarily just the one game, the 6-0 loss. But and then they also dropped 2 games, 4-1 to Byron Center and Clarkston as well. Key players, Brody Sheldon with 21 points, and my guy Seth Sandstrom with 18. It's been a while since Marquette has had go-to guys in this lineup offensively. They're both on pace to go over the 40-point mark in the regular season. A pair of Sentinels haven't done that since Jake and Joe Phillips in the 2015-16 season. And only one has reached the 40-point plateau in that span, and it was Jake Garrow back in 22-23. And the Sentinels might have 2 players hit that mark this season. That's a pretty impressive milestone to hit if it all pans out the way we're tracking right now. Jack Pond, Evan Matilla, back end has been a little quiet as well. Just 11 total points between Lucas Balkowski and Brody Lemire. That's okay. I don't need big numbers from the blue line, especially when the top line is buzzing and playing the way they know. And maybe the top line is producing at the clip they are because of the, I'll call it, lack of production from elsewhere in the lineup. But if the rest of the lineup starts producing, well, that takes the pressure off the top line to try and produce. There's only one puck, and we all can't eat at the same time. So it'll be interesting to see how the next couple games, the next couple weeks unfold for Marquette. But they got a big tilt tonight against Escanaba. They got Jeffers, Heartland, Brighton, all after the new year, plus a pair of showcases and a rematch with Calumet. So hopefully we can settle that 3-3 tie debate down the line. Okay, number 9, Riverview Gabriel Richard. They are technically 3-7-1 on the season, but a couple big wins. They got a 7-0 win over Escanaba. They beat East Grand Rapids 3-1, but then had to give that game back. Bad losses, 5-1 to Orchard Lake. You'd like to see maybe be a little more competitive in that game, but if you really look and read between the tea leaves, it was much more than a 5-1 final. That was 1-1 going into the third, and RGR outshot Orchard Lake 37-32. 3 power play goals against in that game. You see the special teams go the other way, or maybe not so many trips to the box. That entire game could have an entirely different final to it, entirely different look and feel. That's 2 Division III teams right there, too. Next time they play, the state title could be on the line. Keep that in perspective. Okay. Key players for them, Michael Toucher is on a tear for the Pioneers. He's got 8 points in the last 4 games. He leads the team in scoring. Connor Forster, he was super high on my top 100 names to know. Mason Eshelman, Matthew Hillock. I like Connor Patak in net. He's a big kid. But they've got 3 different goalies who have all recorded a win this season too. So that's pretty impressive. Everybody getting involved in the success there for RGR. The road ahead, Trenton, they take on just after the new year. Then they got a big trip to the UP to take on Calumet and Houghton on consecutive nights. A lot of teams in the top 25 seem to be doing that trip to the UP where they take on Calumet and Houghton, or Houghton and Calumet. I know they gave a few games back, like I said, but they could still find a way to get to 15 wins, even after taking a knee on the first 4 games of the season there. So I take a drink here before I get into Trenton. Okay. Trenton sits at 8-3-0, and I believe those last 3 losses have all come consecutively to East Grand Rapids, Cranbrook, and Stevenson. All 3 tough losses too, by the way, giving up 5.66 goals against in those games. I'm doing this kind of inverse. I talked about the losses. Let me touch on the wins real quick. A 4-1 win over Granville. Other than that, though, kind of lacking a bit of a signature win thus far. Schedule's been a little bit light. taking on some non-conference opponent, non-MIHL opponents, and then additionally taking on like Port Huron Northern and some of that too. Key players for them, Donovan Durbin has 7 power play goals that I know of, anyways, that have been logged on the High School Hockey Hub. That's insanity. 18 total, 23 points in total. Him and Brett Allen share the team lead in production. You got Grandin Eccles as well, Zach LeMay. I don't know how EGR and Stevenson managed to keep the offense at bay the way they did, but hats off to them because this offense is diverse, deep, and talented. The road ahead, the 8-game win streak to start the season, I mentioned that. They're in the UP this weekend, and I could see the boys kind of rallying around the road trip. You know, vibes get high on the bus and at the hotel and everything, and trips like this tend to bring the group closer together. And I think it's coming at the right time, especially after dropping their last 3 games. I could see them getting back in the win column. They may not sweep the road trip. That's a tough ask for anybody downstate to go across the bridge and come back with 2 wins. But if they can get just one, I think you'd feel pretty good about the weekend. Tough MIHL matchups ahead as well with RGR, Orchard Lake, Cranbrook, and CC all on the horizon. The schedule's not gonna let up for Trenton. So, okay, number 7 here, Livonia Stevenson, another team that I really kind of had to reassess and reevaluate, especially after their 5-2 win over Trenton at the Alphabet Showcase last Saturday. They're 6-3-0 overall. In addition to that Trenton win, they also have a 4-3 win over Brighton, which I believe was last night, I think. I don't know. But so Stevenson, obviously a strong start. Oh, no, I know what was last night now. Okay, now we're back on track. Beat Brighton 4-3. But when you look at the other side of the coin, we get into bad losses, and that's what happened last night, if I'm not mistaken, was the 6-3 loss to Jackson. Jackson led this game wire to wire, basically, too. Up 2-0 in the first and really never looked back. That was a game on the schedule I was stunned by. I was like, well, that's a very odd matchup for the two of those teams to be getting together. And I thought for sure Stevenson would have rolled in decisive fashion, but much to my surprise, seeing Jackson on the winning side of that matchup was pretty stunned there. So might have to rethink my rankings already. I just rethought them all week. Now I'm gonna have to rethink them again after results like that. But I think that speaks to maybe some of the parity we're seeing this season in high school hockey. I think your top is still your top, but you're still seeing some of these outlier games, some of these surprising results where maybe a lesser than team it steps up to the challenge and answers the bell. Or maybe some of these better teams are overlooking some of these previous opponents and things like that. So makes for some interesting game results nonetheless. And I think that Jackson and Stevenson one in particular was one for me. You look at the key players, and I think this might illustrate some of the challenges there for the Spartans. 2 of their top 3 scorers are on the back end. Colin Strobel with 15 points, Dawson Wallace with 12, and then forward Brendan Seiss in the mix as well with 12 points. When your offense comes so heavily from the back end, it can be a bit of boom or bust at times. And not only that, but when you're playing from behind or you're chasing offense, that makes that offense even harder to produce from the blue line, because not only are you trying to defend and keep that deficit at 2-0, you're also trying to push and force a little bit more than you were before and not letting the game come to you. And I feel like that's when you generate the most production from the back end, is when you let the game come to you. Well, if you're chasing a lead, you don't have that luxury of letting the game come to you, so to speak. You have to force the issue a little bit. You have to push the pace from the back end, and that can present a bit of a challenge. That's not just Stevenson specific. There's been a lot of teams over the last couple of years. Northville last year with Isaac Nelson and Alex McCollum, that was another good example. Those were your 2 best players, 2 big sources of offense for the Mustangs last season, and there were times when it was difficult to create offense because you spend so much time defending and then have to try and create on the other end too. So road ahead for Stevenson, a Calumet Houghton combination just before Christmas, just like many of the teams I've mentioned here before. They also got a bunch of tough KLAA games coming up. Heartland, Northville, they got Cranbrook, they got RGR. All those could be wins, right? That you could be looking at 2, 4, 6 wins right there. All those could be losses too. You could be looking at 6 losses the other way. So very interesting. It'll likely be somewhere in the middle, 4-2, 5-1, 3-3, something like that. But if you told me they won all 6, I wouldn't be shocked. And if you told me they lost all 6, I equally wouldn't be surprised. So, okay, we'll keep moving along here. Number 6, Alpena, 8-3-0. Big movers in the rankings. They're up 5 spots week over week. And again, kind of goes back to the need to overhaul our top 25 rankings. 3-2 win over Cranbrook. I just raved about Cranbrook in the Cranes and how good they're looking. If the Cranes are moving up, Alpena's got to go up even further with a win like that. 6-1 over Caledonia as well. Bad losses, again, 6-0 to Powers. Losing to Powers is not a black eye by any stretch of the imagination. It's just the way in which you fall there. And then 3-1 to Traverse City Central. That's a big rivalry game. Okay, I know it's a bit of a surprise for them to drop that game to an unranked TC Central, but they outshot them 33-19. I think it was a funny game. I think it was tied going into the third, and the Trojans found their way to 2 goals. One of them being pretty late there in the third. But just one of those games, man. It's a rivalry. There's a ton of passion and pride on the line. Family involved. You got Coach Gibbons on one bench and Coach Gibbons on another bench. So always a fun rivalry there. So nonetheless, like I said, it's maybe a quote-unquote bad loss because you wouldn't expect them to drop that. But given the stakes, I think I definitely understand the outcome there. Key players, Gavin Winterstein and Clark Weir leading the way. Good depth, though, too. Trevor Worth, Brody Misiak, Beckham Winterstein, a little second-generation Winterstein there for the Wildcats. Good defense in front of Parker Schultz, too. I like that. Only teams to generate 30-plus shots on Alpena have been your heavy hitters. Cranbrook, CC, Powers, top teams in the state have been able to generate a good amount of offense. But everyone else has been pretty quiet, and they've contained other opponents to 20 shots or less on several occasions this season. So good defensively around the net as well for Alpena. The road ahead, they get another crack at TC Central this weekend, actually. So hoping to earn a 1-1 split on the season series. They got Escanaba, they got Jackson United, who apparently, these top teams, we need to be on high alert here over Jackson. And I say that, kind of jokingly a little bit. I texted one of my coaching buddies, and he was like, "Yeah, Jackson's legit, man. They can put a scare into some people." So I'll lump in JU here as a bit of an upset alert as Alpena takes them on later this season. Okay, number 5, Orchard Lake St. Mary's. They do drop down slightly in my rankings. They were opened up at number 4 in the preseason, jumped up to number 3 after, who did they beat? I'm blanking as I'm looking at it now, but nonetheless, they dropped to number 5 here. And if you wanted to make the case for them to drop down even further after getting mercied by Howell 9-1 last weekend, I'll hear your argument. But it was a stunning result when you see that come across the ticker, right? That Howell beat St. Mary's 9-1. But then when you start to think about it, or you look into the score a little bit, it was a bad stretch of minutes, a bad 15-minute span, a bad 20-minute span. Take a couple bad penalties and a couple power play goals end up in the back of your net, that type of thing. Orchard Lake, historically over the last couple of years, I feel like when things are good, they're great. And I look at like their 8-3 win over Brighton. Things are going their way. Everything goes their way, and everybody's getting in on the scoring parade. Things aren't going their way, and they're struggling a little bit. it equally goes the other way too, and everything falling. The wheels are falling off, right? And so I feel like that's just the case in what happened there with Howell. Same could be said there probably with their 5-2 loss to CC as well. It was basically 5-1, and outshot pretty significantly. I think Orchard Lake added a late goal there to the mix to make it 5-2. Key players, man, they got 10 guys averaging a point per game. And Charlie Roberts leading the way with 20, and then Thad Rainish with 19. I go back to that game with Brighton because it just illustrated how good this team can be and what their ceiling is. Watching that game there just before Thanksgiving, it really looked like a special bunch. And I'm going to expect more of that team this season than the 9-1 team that lost to Howell last weekend. So the road ahead, they've got a couple more out-of-state opponents coming up. I want to say they've played 2 or 3 to this point in the season, and they got a couple more on the horizon after the new year. But then they also play Cranbrook, a rematch with CC. I'd like to see that go a little bit differently, and that doesn't necessarily mean St. Mary's comes away with a victory, but obviously just more competitive or a better showing in that one. Also take on Trenton, also take on Powers. All of that happens before the MIHL showcase towards the end of January, early February there for the Eaglets. Then we get into the top 4 here. Flint Powers is 9-1-0 on the season. Big wins thus far, 7-2 over Clarkston. That's a real big statement win. 6-0 over Alpena, same thing. That really is making your mark there. Bad losses, again, it's their only loss on the resume. I'd hardly consider it a bad loss, but 3-1 to Heartland there. Key players, if you don't know by now, you're living under a rock, man, when it comes to Powers. Aiden Cook has 35 points this season, and I believe he's just 2 or 3 points shy of the 150 mark all time in his career, which would be a huge, huge accomplishment. Sophomore Owen Perry, he's got 31. Parker Bendel, 10 of his 24 points have come on the power play, and his 6 goals on the man advantage are the most on the team. Is he the one you need to key in on the power play? Like, when it comes to the man advantage, obviously, I'm being facetious, like Aiden Cook is a weapon, but Parker Bendel there is the one putting the puck in the net at the end of the day. So opponents, do we need to key in on Bendel there and make sure the shot's not coming off of his stick? But the road ahead, Howell worries me a little bit. Worries me a lot, especially after the way they've looked the last couple games. Orchard Lake on the horizon. RGR should be a good game. And then they get CC at home in February. There's a lot of hockey between now and then, but that's a matchup I've had circled on my calendar since preseason there. So the top 3, really this top 5 hasn't changed much. It hasn't changed at all since preseason. It's been these same 5 teams in some order. Number 3 here, I have Heartland at 10-1-0. Big wins, obviously the 2-1 stunner over Catholic Central a couple weeks back. Also beat Powers 3-1. Bad loss, again, not a bad loss, 3-2 to cross-county rival Howell. Key players, Braden Stevens is on state champs short list for player of the year. But fellow first-year player and former AAA prospect Max Bogatitis leads the team with 18 points. So you got 2 really good first-year guys there. And then a moment, too, here for Ian Evans. He's the straw that stirs the drink there in Heartland. Fantastic two-way center. And without him, I'm not sure Stevens and Bogo are out to the hot starts that they are, that they're having so far this season. But nonetheless, you got plenty of offensive threats there. And they found a way to make it all work and get everybody involved in the mix there. So it's a good problem for Coach Brown to have in his first season behind the bench. Vinny Sabala, too, the revenge tour just continues. A 1.38 goals against average, a 94.2 save percentage. He's on one, man. He's on one again. Fantastic numbers last year, and he's putting up video game numbers again this season as well, with just something to prove, man. Look out for that kid. The road ahead, a Houghton Calumet weekend coming up. Kicks off a streak of 7 straight games against ranked opponents. They also end the season with tough MIHL opponents, Trenton and Orchard Lake. That'll sharpen your knives as you head into the playoffs there for sure. Excuse me. We go a couple miles down the road for number 2 here. You got Howell, also at 10-1-0 this season. Big wins. I mentioned the 6-0 win over Houghton, followed up with a 4-0 win over Calumet the next night. I've talked about it multiple times here on this episode. It's hard to sweep the weekend in the UP, and Howell did it in one of the first weekends of the season. That's a big feather in the cap there. They beat rival Heartland 3-2. Mentioned that. They beat Brighton 4-3, and then mercied Orchard Lake last weekend as well. So they've beaten everybody but the one that they need to beat at this point. Bad loss, not a bad loss. 4-3 to Catholic Central, your number 1 team here in a moment. So would love to see that rematch. I think we're going to get that rematch come playoff time. I think everyone is chomping at the bit and looking forward to that game. And obviously don't want to wish away the hockey season, but if we could just fast forward to that rematch a little bit, that'd be a lot of fun. Key players here for the Highlanders. They got 4 guys with 20-plus points right now. That is insane. Luke Storm scored 5 goals in that Mercy game against Orchard Lake. I don't usually highlight performances in Mercy games. Like, I don't want to hear about stat stuff and performances. But when they're against a top 5 team and it's one of the best players in the state, it does mean just a little bit more in my book there. 29 points from Marco Wolf. Bryce Escala having a fantastic season as well. And I can't forget about arguably the best defenseman in the state right now, and Chad Patilla, who's got 20 points as well. The road ahead, they got Powers, Heartland Part 2 in January. And not knowing what the MIHL matchups, MIHL showcase matchups are, this is a team that may run the table into the playoffs as well. Which would be very impressive, very impressive feat there if all holds true. Your number 1 team, oh geez, I just lost Howell. I lost Howell. There we go. Your number 1 team in the state, surprise, surprise, Detroit Catholic Central, 12-1-0 on the season. Big wins. Obviously, I've mentioned just about all these games at this point, but 5-2 over Orchard Lake, 9-0 over Rice, and Rice I had ranked at the time, and obviously the Warriors struggling a little bit, I believe, at 2-7-0 on the season. Still arguably the biggest rivalry in Michigan high school hockey. I don't think there's ever been a matchup in recent memory that resulted in a mercy. That felt like a bit of a statement game to me from the Shamrocks, so I put it on here as a big win, just as a bit of a kind of a warning shot to the rest of the state, put everybody else on blast that CC is still CC. And then on top of that, too, a 5-0 win over Riverview Gabriel Richard as well. Bad loss, only loss on the resume, 2-1 to Heartland at home, which maybe constitutes the quote-unquote bad loss. But I think that served as a bit of a wake-up call for CC. I mentioned the 9-1 mercy of Rice, which happened, I believe, just a week later. 5 shutouts since that loss to Heartland, including blanking Rice, RGR, and Brighton as well. Key players for them, they've got 12 skaters in double figures. That's just stupid. That is insane. Gabe Thompson has 9 points as well. So if you want to round that 12 up to 13, I won't fight you on that either. He's on the fringe and could reach the 10-point plateau at any moment. So it's a deep offensive attack yet again, but it's actually 2 defensemen at the top for CC, with Ryan Dye, who has 20 points, and then Sammy Masick with 16. And then Sean Goff, if you want to throw him in there, that's 3 of the top 4. Goff has 14 on top of all that. Matthew Nida is a slippery forward. That'd be the one forward up front that I'd be leery of heading into some of those matchups with CC. He's got 13. Jack Dorgan is the top scoring forward. He's got 15. He's a big-bodied guy, a bit of a brute offensively who can do the dirty work and power his way to the net. A lot of guys there to look out for with CC. They've given up 20 shots on goal. 20. Just 3 times this season. In fact, they've held opponents to single digits in shots 5 times. They've held people to single digits more than they've given up 20 or more shots. That's pretty wild when you put it into perspective that way. The road ahead, I mentioned Orchard Lake gets another crack at them. I don't know that will be any different, though. If anyone left on the schedule knocks off CC, it's likely going to be an out-of-state team. I don't see anyone in the mitten getting it done down the stretch here. So, all right, there's a look at your top 25. We'll bring it back to my ugly mug, and I'll have to move some things around here. All right, so a lot there, obviously breaking down every team in the top 25 and their resumes thus far. I also wanted to add one more thing to the mix before we hang up. At the end of last season, I put together a 2-tiered playoff format that I think is just perfect. I thought it'd be good to maybe role play a little bit, and we'll walk through my playoff system as if it was in place this season in real time. So you can see how it would look, feel, function with a current season that's going on at the moment. To date, there aren't really any major updates, but at least wanted to reintroduce it. And if you want to take a look back at the playoff proposal, I did link it in the description below, so you can check that out. Let me pull this into a window here, and I will blow this up before I share it with the masses. Okay. If I reshare my screen, and I'll move my, hang on here. I want to be able to there we go. That's what I wanted to do. I wanted to move myself out of the way so you can see everything there. Okay. So, what I pitched, what I proposed, and like I said, it's all in the previous episode of the pod if you want to go back and check it out. You divide the state into 4 regions: Metro East, Metro West, West Michigan, and then Northern Michigan. And based on these 4 regions, let's call them sections, just to not conflict with current perceptions of what a regional is. So these 4 sections, and these are the teams and where they'd be assigned at the beginning of the season. Additionally, the list of rinks up at the top as well. These are the rinks currently being used for the 2026 playoffs. So this is real, actual data and information. These are the rinks that are being used for the upcoming season. So I'll use them in my hypothetical scenario as well, just to show you and illustrate that it is functional and operational and will work in our current format. So let me see here. Was there anything else I wanted to add? Now, the thing about my format, you don't need as many rinks. And in fact, you only need 16 of the 22 listed for this particular season, this actual season. So that makes life easier on everyone, MHSAA included, right? Like, you don't have to hunt down anyone, twist anyone's arm into hosting a region that maybe they don't want to host. So I'll let you take a look at this list of teams here by section of the state. Go ahead and pause or do whatever you need to, but gives you an idea of who goes where. And in theory, this could change slightly year over year if you've got a program on the fringe or outskirts of one of these sections. It's about as even or as balanced as you can get here. If you look at the total number of teams, 30 in the north, 25 in the west, 35 in Metro East, 33 in Metro West. Let me drag this window into the screen as well, and you can check this out. So this is the map of all the programs, and then you can see color coordinated north, West Michigan, Metro West, Metro East. in theory, like I said, you could maybe drag a couple of these Metro West teams over to Grand Rapids, but it just didn't seem all that feasible to move Howell and have them play in Grand Rapids or Chelsea or things like that, albeit those teams have gone to Grand Rapids for regionals in the past. So not totally out of the realm of possibility. If you really wanted to balance these regions out in terms of numbers, you could move some teams around and make it even across the board. But essentially, as we sit here to date, the narrative would be this group of teams. If you're in this group, you are going to one of these 4 rinks come playoff time. You won't know until MPR rankings are finalized, which happens in early February, and I'll do a follow-up video showing how each of these sections would be broken out into a tier 1 and tier 2, and where teams would get assigned and what new playoff regionals and brackets could look like in this format if it held true. But yeah, you're looking at 30 teams here in the north, 25 in the west, 35 in Metro East, 33 in Metro West, and then you're also seeing a breakdown of the regions. 8 teams in one region, 7 in another, 8 teams, 7. Regions of 7, 6, 6, and 6. Regions of 9, 9, 9, and 8, and then regions of 9, 8, 8, and 8. And what I like about this is you're seeing full regions. You're not seeing regional playoffs of 4 teams, 5 teams. I think right now the most teams we have in a region is 6. And not to be, back in my day, get off my lawn guy, but it wasn't that long ago when we had 7, 8, 9 teams in a region, and a regional playoff actually meant something. So cutting us down to 2, from 3 divisions to 2, I think is the biggest step. And then as the season unfolds, I'll illustrate to you guys just how these teams would be broken up into a tier 1 and a tier 2. And then these teams would be broken up into a tier 1 and a tier 2, and so on and so on. And then doling out rink assignments as well. So it'll be a fun little hypothetical, like I said, a bit of a role-playing exercise with a season in full swing and how it would all take place. But right now, you'd essentially already have your host sites, which we already do. Your teams would be designated into sections, as I called them, as opposed, you would have section assignments and not division assignments. Right now, teams know if they're Division 1 or Division 2 or Division 3. In my situation, you would know, yeah, I'm a North team, I'm a West team, I'm a Metro East team, and so on. So, okay, wow, over an hour here. I did not think this episode was going to be that lengthy. I did not think I was going to be that long-winded. I thought it'd be a pretty short, quick top 25 update, and you guys got a whole hour on the PD's Picks podcast here. So, all right, more to come. Smash that subscribe button if you would. Helps me out a ton. Greatly appreciated there on YouTube. Happy holidays, everyone. And until next time, skate hard, have fun. I'll see you at the rink soon.